Welcome to Goodera's Voices of Change podcast, where we delve into the organizations, strategies, innovations, stories that are driving positive social impact across the globe. I'm your host, Harshita Goyal, Associate Director of Nonprofit Partnerships and Category at Goodera. In each episode, we bring you insightful conversations with change makers and industry leaders who are reshaping the landscape of social impact, community engagement, and volunteerism. In this episode of Voices of Change, we'll explore the transformative power of volunteering when it comes to creating opportunities for HBCU students. Join us as we explore how nonprofits like HBCU Heroes are addressing opportunity gaps, empowering students, and building a future of equity and success for HBCU students across the country. This episode delves into the critical role of organizations driving change and the impact of collaborative efforts of volunteers and corporate organizations in creating meaningful opportunities for the next generation of leaders. Our guest today, Tracy Penewell, CEO of HBCU Heroes, will share insights on the unique needs of HBCU students, the impact of programs like resume reviews, career forums, and mentorship, and how partnerships between nonprofits and corporate organizations can drive meaningful change. Great. So, Tracy, I'm going to get started and then glad to have you here with us. So, to get us started, Tracy, I would really love to know what inspired the creation of HBCU Heroes and how has your mission evolved to meet the need of HBCU students today?
Thank you so much for asking that. We're actually really proud to say that um, both myself and the other co-founder, whose name is George Lynch, we both are not HBCU alum. We went to UNC Chapel Hill, and George actually played basketball for the Tar Heels and was really renowned at UNC in '93, won the NCAA championship as the captain of the team. He went on to play for the Lakers and the 76ers and the NBA. And when he got his first head coaching position, it was at an HBCU. It was at Clark Atlanta University. And so when he got that position, he realized that there were some financial cuts and different things that made it where his basketball team didn't have scholarships. A lot of them didn't. They didn't have a training table. They didn't have laptops to get their schoolwork done away from campus. And so we initially created HBCU Heroes just so that George could be competitive with his basketball team. We wanted to raise money for scholarships, raise money for tech and computer devices, and just give them everything we needed. And then shortly thereafter, the pandemic hit. And we realized that not only was George's basketball team suffering, that we felt that we saw really actually that there was such an educational divide and that we needed to really dive in and help with HBCUs across the nation. And so HBCU Heroes became a nationwide movement at that point where we were able to provide laptops when the pandemic hit, and so that all people, all HBCUers across the nation could have access to some of those laptops that we had. And then obviously for scholarships and some of the other vital needs. So that's how HBCU Heroes was born. And we believe that anyone, anywhere can be an HBCU hero if you just put in some elbow grease, a little time, a little volunteer work.
That's great. I love the part of the mission, Tracy, where you say how everyone can be an HBCU hero by kind of making their own individual contributions to support students across the country. And it's great to kind of understand the evolution from a focus on sports to then focusing entirely on academia as well. Um, I know that HBCUs have a legacy of producing transformative leaders. That's, I think, well known now. There's a lot of studies that have been done on the topic. Can you share a story that highlights the unique value and influence of HBCU graduates in shaping industries or communities across the nation?
absolutely can. I think the most well-known HBCU story is our current Vice President of the U.S., Kamala Harris, who, she is a Howard University alumni. She has made amazing strides in government in helping across the nation with making laws, making policies. She was, a senator. Her rise in America was just nothing short of amazing. But also, she is one of the people I would say that put HBCUs on the front page for more people to see. Some of us may be familiar with Oprah Winfrey, who most of us globally, I suppose, are familiar with Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey is an alum of Tennessee State. And obviously, Oprah has changed the shape of media and of talk shows and of the way that industry does business, even creating lots of different opportunities for others to work as she has her own network now, the Oprah Winfrey Network. And so there are many, many, many more. I think we have obvious examples in, there's another one is Rosalind Brewer, who was the former CEO of Walmart, but up until that point, there had never been a black female CEO, CEO of, I'm sorry, that's Walgreens, not Walmart, Walgreens. And so, in all levels, in all industries, HBCU folks are just making really, really, really transformative marks. But on a personal note, one of my business partners, whose name is Hayward Damon, I think his story really nails home what someone who goes to an HBCU and sees what the needs are can really do to help out. So Hayward Damon grew up in Philadelphia, was recruited to go to Penn, and then at the last minute, he ended up getting some recruitment offers in from FAMU in Florida. And so he ended up saying, you know what, I will go to FAMU. He studied business. And since graduating some years ago, he has now, he's the board chairman of an organization which we partner with a lot called HBCU Week. They've given out $88 million in scholarships to HBCU students over the last decade. And I say that because if you think about, if Hayward or people like him had gone to a Penn or another predominantly white institution, a PWI, imagine the money. He's one of those people who would have been involved no matter what school he went to. He's just that guy. But if you look at what his mark has left on the HBCU community, just because he ended up attending an HBCU and is a proud FAMU alum, that $88 million in scholarships has spread out through the community and helped so many people. And so there are lots of examples like that, stories that we know of people who kind of got in there, they saw the need, and they've helped all across this nation. But I really like to salute that one in particular, just because I've seen him and seen how he works.
No, absolutely. I agree. I
Mhm.
mean, I've spoken to Hayward briefly, but I think he's
Mhm.
definitely an inspiration, the work that he's doing in this space. And
Mhm.
I agree. I think graduates from HBCUs are present in every field, leaving a mark wherever they go, whether
Mhm.
that's creative fields, arts, or even STEM. I think HBCUs make these incredible contributions to the economy and society. But despite these incredible contributions, Tracy, HBCUs and their students often face, systemic challenges, and they continue to persist even now, despite the value that they're delivering to the economy and society. Why do you think these barriers persist, and what role do you think corporates and nonprofit partners can play in leveling the playing field for HBCU students?
Thank you for that question, Harshita. It's such a great question, and it's really imperative that we all understand why this continues to persist. It's basically just years and years of historic uneven playing fields, uneven level of distribution of funding from the government, uneven opportunities for HBCUs. And so if I were to even just go back to the very beginning in America, um, at the very beginning of education in colleges, Black people were not allowed to attend white institutions for, higher collegiate education. There was no way for them to get that, education, and so they ended up having to create HBCUs so that they could get that higher education. And you know, creating it from your communities in your communities. There wasn't the funding that was given to those white institutions in the very beginning. Even now in 2024, there are land grants that are owed, millions and millions of dollars are owed to Oprah Winfrey's alumni, Tennessee State. There's lots of different HBCUs that the federal government owes money to in land grants that still persists. There are also the opportunities when you look at the endowments of different schools. Harvard has more money in its endowment than all 100 plus HBCUs combined. And you look at that because it is a trickle down effect. When you start from behind, and then sometimes when you're graduating, you're still starting from, not being where other people are when they're able to, you say, hey, Rob, my son's graduating from Harvard. He's looking for a job. Can you give him a job at your corporation? A lot of times HBCUers don't have that networking system in place. They don't have the resources in place. The funding's not in place. There's a lot of cutback. And then, even with the schools just aren't, they're not sometimes, some schools are, like Howard gets a lot of funding. There are top 5 HBCUs, I'd say Morehouse, Spelman, Howard, that get a lot of the funding from corporations. And then the other 97 plus tend to be left behind. And so I just think if we were to make a mark and make something here that we can speak of, Harshita, that would help with all the HBCUs, I would say for corporations, for donors, there are 100 plus HBCUs. And so if you would like to give support, maybe consider spreading it out to some of those other institutions that definitely could use the help. And they're just as great as some of the PWIs. They just, might be in a little town in Mississippi or something like that, but certainly just as worthy of all the benefits and rewards that other institutions do get in funding.
Agreed,
Mm.
Tracy. I think there's a need to like make like a concerted effort, but also like spread it across different
Mhm.
HBCUs across the nation so that everyone's kind of getting the benefit of people who are trying to do good or create more opportunities for students. So I think that's a great point for corporates to take back and think about. Talking about what can companies do to support HBCU students, I think this is a great time to talk about Future Forward, Tracy. So I think initiatives like Future Forward are, the intent was to empower students with tangible tools for success and create these opportunities where um, corporate partners and employees with considerable professional experience could leverage their skills to give back to the HBCU students and really support them in their academic and professional journeys. Can you walk us through some of the projects which are part of Future Forward, like the Career Forum or the mentoring session, and how you think these projects are reshaping or can reshape the professional futures of HBCU students?
Absolutely, I'd be glad to. And first, let me say that we're so excited to work on this project with Kadera and the team that you all have there for the rest of the year and beyond. One thing about HBCU Heroes is we know that 60% of the students, not only that we personally deal with, but 60% of the students in the HBCU community are low income, first generation college students who don't have those resources and networking opportunities in their households that some other kids have from other families. So for us, being a part of even the mentorship program and the career forum, what that will do is it will connect HBCU students from across America with mentors in corporate that can help them with that one-on-one networking, that can help them answer questions from, how do I ace a job interview, or how do I negotiate a salary if I feel that I'm worth more than what they're offering. Those kinds of things sometimes with students, we find that they don't have people to go to necessarily that might know those kinds of answers who work in corporate America. So by giving them a platform where they can freely ask career prep questions, questions on interviews, questions on resume reviews, that sort of thing, that will really help in the career forum to really drill down on their personal and individual needs that sometimes they're not able to get when they're going to their career services at their institutions, because obviously there's serving thousands and thousands of students. So for those students who need that little extra boost, our career forums are really going to help to really substantiate the work that they're doing to make their resumes winning and their interviews, a priority. And then also with the mentorship program that we're doing, same thing. We'll be able to really help students by allowing small groups or either one-on-one programming where they'll be connected with corporate mentors and really be able to drill down again on all of that career prep that they're not getting, and not just only the technical facets, but career journeys. Sometimes if an HBCUer doesn't have those role models that they can look at and say, okay, how do I become a CEO of a major Fortune 500 company? They may not know, but a lot of us don't know anyone like that. But if that's their career trajectory, being able to connect them with people in corporate America or corporations across the globe even will really set them on the right track. And they'll be able to ask those questions, those tactical questions from people who have done it, from, people along the ranks that they can say, okay, where do you start? If that is my journey, where do you start? And be able to connect them one-on-one with people who can give them answers to get them on their way. So those two programs in particular are really, really great assets to us to help our students to really, really persevere and make sure their goals and their dreams come true.
Right. I think having like role models where, you can really visualize yourself at some point of time in their place or get insights from on their journey, what was kind of the trajectory that they followed. I think that can really make a lot of a difference in someone's professional journey and success and really set them up to achieve their dreams. So likewise, I think everyone at Goodera is very excited for Future Forward, and we're really looking forward to having our corporate partners engage with the students and really enable them in multiple ways, whether that be through answering their questions, whether that's, reviewing their LinkedIn or resumes, actually connecting with them and creating a networking platform. So can't wait for January next year to see what all we can do for the students together, and super excited for that. Since we're talking about 2025, Tracy, what is your vision for the future of HBCU Heroes? And how do you think the listeners of this podcast and even potential volunteers can become a part of this transformative journey that you have, or the vision you have for HBCU Heroes for the next year?
Thank you for asking. So, HBCU Heroes, our little engine that could, if you will, is our HBCU Heroes Online Academy, which is where we are connecting with Gadara, and we're connecting to try to get mentors across all spectrums to help with our students to be able to become better candidates for jobs and internships. And so, for us, we're really looking at HBCU Heroes Online Academy and just HBCU Heroes altogether to connecting with more corporations who can facilitate some of this learning, some of this virtual learning, and possibly even doing more on-site. We do on-site career fairs. We do lots of, we revisit schools. We'd like to take more students on career trips, field trips, if you will, to visit corporations in person as well, to make sure that they're able to do more than sometimes you can do on our virtual sessions. So that's one of the things that we're looking to expanding. We also have our HBCU Heroes campaign for giving program. And so what that does is a Dollars for Scholars program. A lot of people don't realize this, but almost 25% of HBCUs suffer from things like, food insecurity. They suffer from housing insecurity, where, maybe they didn't get housing on campus. And so now it's hard for them to afford an apartment, those kinds of things. And so what our Dollars for Scholars giving campaign, what we do is we raise funding for students so that they can continue to be heroes on their campuses. Because sometimes just taking away the stress of those little needs can continue to help you to make sure that you're getting your schoolwork done. And so we have a $5 million goal to raise money for Dollars for Scholars, even for emergencies like dental care. Or we recently had a student who was interviewing and their cell phone got cut off. They couldn't pay the bill and they were afraid that they might miss an important call Of course, they check their emails on their phone too. And so we were able to pay their phone bill with our Dollars for Scholars giving campaign because in addition to scholarships and in addition to paying for books, sometimes we had a student recently as well, maybe 6 months ago, who there was a book that was $500 for one book and they couldn't afford it. And so, if your parents can't afford it, if your mom can't afford it, you can't afford it, you're not working because you're trying to get your schoolwork done, those little things like that can really set you back. So one of the things we're looking forward to doing in 2025 is continuing to raise funding for our Dollars for Scholars campaign. And for anyone who wants to get involved with virtually mentoring or donating, you can find all of our info at hbcuheroes.org. The donation link is there. How you can get involved as a mentor or volunteer is there. And we're always looking for people who can chip in. Because one thing I also would love for your viewers to know is sometimes people think like, I might not be a LinkedIn expert, or I might not be a person that is a great resume reviewer, but if you're in the corporate field at all, I find that you have things you can give that, imagine someone who's maybe 10, 15, 20 years younger than you. You know a lot more than they do just from life experiences, like we said, career journeys, being a motivator, being an inspirer, an inspiration. Those things also really, really help. And so we just always, again, think that anyone can be an HBCU hero. Everyone has something they can give, whether it's inspiration, a donation, motivation, or tactical support on resumes and LinkedIn profiles and that sort of thing. So 2025, we are really looking to increase our mentorship programming, our volunteer programming, and really connecting more students. Our goal is to connect 20,000 HBCU students or more with networking, with mentorship and jobs and internships.
That's a fantastic mission, Tracy. I can't even imagine how helpful that will be to the 20,000 students that you're hoping to positively impact. And I hope we can play a small or big role in it along with our corporate partners. And I agree. I think the first step to being a helpful volunteer is to just having the intent. And everything else kind of falls in place eventually, whether that's finding the right skill set or finding the right words to share motivation. But all of it kind of begins with having the right intent to support someone. So, very excited to see what all is in store for 2025 at HBCU Heroes. I think towards the end, Tracy, you mentioned how, one of the focus for next year's is mentorship and connecting students with mentoring and networking support. So I think mentorship is also a cornerstone of the Future Forward mission. How have you seen, one act of guidance or mentorship really ripple out and affect the student's career, but potentially even their entire family or community? Can you share a story where mentorship sparked a larger chain reaction of success, or where student really benefited from having mentorship support right in the beginning?
Sure. I'll share one of my favorites from a couple years ago. We had a student whose name was Delilah. She actually, and people don't know this, a lot of people don't know this. So HBCUs are not only just Black and African American students. There are Native Americans, there are Black and Brown people, even white students go to HBCUs. So she actually was a Native American who was living on an Indian reservation. She grew up on an Indian reservation, and she was attending an HBCU in Mississippi, where they just did not have a lot of resources. A very small college, and they did not have a lot of resources. And so we were doing a career fair at the Prudential Center in New Jersey for a Michael B. Jordan HBCU basketball tournament. And so we had over 50 blue chip companies that came to that event, and they were coming to actually look for for students for jobs and internships. And so at the time she was interning for us, but I was personally mentoring her as well. And she said to me, I've never been to New York. I think this could be really life changing if I could get to New York and go to this event, and then I could meet with all of these corporations and, maybe get my opportunity. She wanted to be a journalist. And so I actually took it upon myself. I sent that letter to her email to Amazon, who was one of the career fair sponsors. And through their organization, then Black Employment Network, they actually raised the money to fly her in. They actually gave her money to, like, while she was there, to stay and eat and all the things that you don't think about if you're going to New York because it's so expensive. And then one of their employees actually took it upon themselves to mentor her, who was in her field. So she actually got the trip. She went to New York. She got the employee from Amazon to mentor her, and now she is working as a journalist. And so, for me, what I see with things like that is even from the virtual touch points that we have with our two companies, with Codera and HBCU Heroes, sometimes we don't know how greatly we're affecting our communities. But you take someone from a reservation who, if anyone knows the stats about reservations, they are unfortunately the epitome of underfunded communities where there's not even a hospital within miles. The schools are underfunded. They are places where if you can help someone from a reservation, I mean, it speaks volumes. So she'll be able to take now the job that she has, the money she's making, send it back to her reservation and really help going forward to help other students and other people in her community not only see that there is a way out sometimes, but also just being willing to be mentored and to put your story out there and, to take it upon yourself to say, it starts with me. I really admire her courage for that. And so she's doing well and thriving, and she's just one of my favorites because it was so inspiring that the same thing I saw from her, Amazon actually saw the same thing, and they just helped her be the engine that could.
That's such a great story. And I think she's kind of become her own role model for the community that she is
Yes, yes.
essentially a source of inspiration who can then mentor her peers as well. So I think
Mhm.
the chain reaction is honestly so beautiful, and one act of mentoring, one act of really sharing valuable insight can make a really positive difference in someone's life and really enable them to continue that legacy forward for communities around them. So that's really beautiful. Um, I think just to wrap up the conversation, Tracy, would love to know from you, uh, what does a volunteer experience with HBCU look like? What does, you know, as an Amazon volunteer or any volunteer from any company, what do volunteers typically not realize about the impact that they're creating in the lives of HBCU students? And if this was an opportunity for you to really share the difference that they were making in the lives of students, what would you say to them?
First of all, again, I would really impress upon anyone who's thinking about doing this. It is so rewarding. We hear it all the time. We get emails all the time from corporations who say they're really, really able to share their with all of the fruits of their labor that they have. And the good news about the mentorshiping that we do and that we're going to do with you all as well is that you can be we have interns from certain companies that they come on and you can be an intern level, you can be early career development. Early career development mentors are great because they just got a job at these companies recently, so they know the process and the protocols and what to do and not to do for certain companies on how to get on with those companies. So it's really great. They have input to share that's recent and fresh. And sometimes you can talk to an HR recruiter or hiring manager, and they're seeing, 2, 3, 400 resumes a day or a week sometimes. And so they'll be able to share that input on these are the things that I would really, really urge you to do and really urge you not to do based on the people that are getting hired and are coming through because they're seeing them all the time. And we have had students to listen to some of this input and say, oh, I can make this one tweak in my resume and that will change everything. And so for mentors, I do want to say that sometimes you can see something that really, really is valuable for a student. We actually had a mentor yesterday who we were doing resume reviews, and we had a mentor who told a student that their resume would not pass the ATS, the automated tracking systems that companies use when they're hiring sometimes. And so the student, in fact, had said, it's so funny because I've put out over 100 resumes and never got a single response. And the statistic was that 70% of most resumes get deleted in that automated tracking system. So if you don't even know what an automated tracking system is and you don't even know that they exist, you could literally be putting out tons of resumes and not getting any responses. And so as a mentor, that person was not even an HR recruiter. That was just a person that had been hired and knew that this is something that companies are doing. They're using the ATS systems. And so there's so many, if I could impart anything, I would say there are so many ways, so many tidbits, so many pro tips, so many things that are valuable that can really, as a knowledge base, really improve the career prep of students. And so for mentors, I would say you don't have to be an Einstein. You don't have to be, all of us have something that we can give back to because we've all been hired before. We all know, even for, cultures in different corporations, sometimes, we'll have people who will say, oh, we work remote and here's how it will look when you get a remote job. Sometimes students, if you think about it, most of us around the globe, in this pandemic era, post era that we're in, this is the era where a lot of jobs have become either hybrid or you have to take a lot of meetings virtually. Students prior to 2020 in HBCUs, I mean, there were not even a lot of virtual classes. So we're trying to groom this whole new population of students and recent graduates who really need to be able to work a virtual room. And that's an art. You don't necessarily just grow up working a virtual room. For those who were off out of school, working remotely for 2 to 3 years, that part also, you know, you got to really know how to do that. And so we like to say to mentors, even things like that, like helping someone know how to work a virtual room, those networking tips that you can give for online virtual support, those are invaluable and will help for students to be more competitive in the job market because, that could be the difference. All things being equal, and we've probably all seen this, where someone looks amazing on a resume and then you get them into an interview and they are so shy, they can't really express themselves. They get that first question, tell me about yourself, and they're stumped, right? We, as a group, all of us together, are trying to make sure that no one gets stumped in those interviews and that they're able to really prevail. And then they, have the perfect resume that's winning and can get past the ATS systems. And then they've got the networking because we all know that at least 60% of jobs today are, because you knew someone, you're networking, you're someone saying, oh, you should apply here, use my name. And so all of those things really matter. And so no matter at what stage you are in your career, you can certainly be a person that is valuable and with input that can help HBCU students.
Great, Tracy. I think, like you said, you can be an HBCU hero, right?
Yes.
I think that's a great way for our volunteers to really realize how much they can share from their own experience, whether that be from their hiring experience or just from their interviewing experience as well. I think there are so many things that come naturally to professionals, which
Mhm.
sometimes seem really out of the blue for students. And so being really forthcoming with the advice that we share is something is really a
Can
good advice for the volunteers. Yes.
And can I add one thing? The other thing that I don't think we talk about a lot, but I think it's really important to put in here. We have students who we've worked with who went to a elementary school that was Black, a junior high school that was Black, a high school that was Black, and then they go to a Black HBCU, right? There are cultural, not only just in the corporate arena, but just cultural diversity things that sometimes students are petrified to then go to a corporate arena where they may be on their team the only person of color. And these are things not only just getting past the technical and the getting to the job, but sometimes when we have really great mentorships programs, and sometimes these things will come up, and they'll be able to talk about, how ERGs and across corporations are able to really, like, if you find a mentor and you join an ERG or two, those kinds of communities at your office environment will help you to get through. And I think in the corporate arena, maybe people are just used to, oh, I'm in three ERGs and we do all these things, and they're just used to that culture. But if you don't even know those exist as a student, that is something that I think will really help to not only help level the playing field, but help integrate you into a world that you're really scared of if you've never been outside of your community in different ways. And so we find that just really working with ERGs and having them give the technical support and all of that, but their experiences. I think we can't overrate how amazing diverse mentors from all walks of life, their experiences are really, really, really key to mentorship. And I just didn't want that to go unnoticed because we have had so many in our years of being in operation, we've just had so many volunteers who have been able to just share that insight and really put students at ease in some of those spaces where they'll be going into where they don't know anyone, you know?
Right. I think the transition can be really intimidating and overwhelming
Mhm.
because of where you come from. And then being a person of color can only makes it even more amplified. And so having someone who's been in this space who can tell you a little bit more about the communities that exist and how
Sure.
you can find belongingness, I think that's really
That's
important
the right word. Yes.
spaces. I think that can really set someone at ease and know that they'll be welcomed at the workspace as well. And I think I agree the value of mentorship can just not be stressed enough. It's so helpful to have someone to guide you on your journey, to help you ask the right questions, to answer your
Yeah.
questions. And I think that can make a ton of a difference to a young professional's life, and more so when they're coming from um, a, uh, a community which is not so well represented as well.
Yes. And
Uh,
can I say the other thing too? On the flip side, which also I'd love for volunteers and mentors to know, it helps the companies and the corporations that they work for because a lot of times you'll get people in who it's hard to keep them because they don't feel welcome, they don't feel like anyone understands, and so being able to have people who can work as volunteer, or I shouldn't say volunteer and be mentors to come out and do these kinds of things, it helps them to actually understand. Maybe they didn't have an understanding of how it might feel to be a person of color in a corporation that has, maybe 3 to 5% people of color in it. A lot of tech companies only have 3 to 5% people of color. So for me, I think the reverse is also true. That understanding that being a volunteer can get from the students as well will help them to make their companies more innovative because now you can hire more people and more people will stay and they'll be able to get embedded in these different corporate cultures that really help everybody to win. So I think it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. It's a win-win situation. I think,
Mhm.
the understanding you get, the perspectives you gain as a volunteer, I think those are really helpful. And I think they also enable you to become better managers, better teammates at the workplace. So I think volunteering as a mentor, sharing your insights is a great development opportunity for the volunteers themselves. So there's no reason not to volunteer, honestly. So it's a win-win on both sides.
Mhm.
Um, Thank you, Tracy, for being so open with your insights and sharing the mission of HBCU Heroes. This has been personally very enlightening for me. I know we've been talking for a while, but having this conversation really, um, I also learned so much about the mission and how the organization has evolved over the years. So thank you so much for sharing more about your journey, how the organization has evolved, how you're thinking of shaping up the organization in the next coming years, and really for encouraging our volunteers and partners to also see the value of their efforts and contribute to the mission that we have upcoming. So thank you so much for your time and insights today, Tracy.
It was a pleasure, Harshita, and I appreciate Gadara's partnership. Again, we're looking forward to partnering with you all in 2025 to kick it off and beyond. But you all do such great work in what you do that we're just looking forward to, expanding our mission and initiatives with the help of you all support with all that you do on your end. So thank you for having me. And on behalf of HBCU Heroes and our HBCU students across the nation, we really are looking forward to the partnership.
Thank you, Tracy, for that insightful conversation. And thank you so much for everyone for joining in and listening in to our conversation around Future Forward and how you can enable HBCU students. Stay tuned for more Voices of Change episodes, and stay tuned also for more updates regarding Future Forward and how you can get involved in the mission.